Welcome to today's podcast episode at HighLevel. We call them the Spotlight Sessions, where we bring in top leaders in the world of marketing and sales to share their story with our community. Today, I have Steve Andrews from She Reigns Creative joining us, and we'll be discussing the loyalty blueprint and building trust and engagement online. Stay tuned for a packed podcast episode. We're going to be touching on striking while the iron's hot, going from prospect to promoter, leveling up, but most importantly, going from good to better to best. What's really neat about Steve Andrews is that he's a multiple-year, seven-figure agency owner. A little brag within our community, he's a two-time SaaSPRENEUR Gold Award winner, and he's made over $1 million using the Go HighLevel platform. We like to remind everybody that as you tune into this episode, results are not guaranteed, but the purpose of this is to inspire and show you what's possible. And as you're going through the episode with us, we hope that you find a nugget or two to create into your business to grow, learn, and inspire others in the Go HighLevel community. A real fun fact here about Steve Andrews is that he used to work for a university, and he's transitioned to now helping kick-ass coaches, course creators, and communities to utilize the features of Go HighLevel and beyond. Steve, welcome. I'm super happy to have you here with me.
Thanks for having us. We're excited. I'm excited to be here today. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know I kind of went in on the intro about you, but I wanted to know, is there anything you'd like to share for a first-time viewer for hearing about you? You know, what should they know about Steve Andrews as we continue on?
Well, first, I'm humble, so I'm not great at saying things about myself. So thank you for calling us out on those things that we've done. As you mentioned, I used to work for a university, and so that means I taught online. Actually, I used to teach for the university, and still do now and again. But I taught for the university online. Learned how to online teach in 2010/2011, around that time. Just as it was in its infancy, really. And then marketed courses for the university. So it was a natural transition to go from that into helping coaches and course creators do what they do.
Yeah, it's the curriculum experience that you bring to your clients has to be amazing because as we spoke earlier prior to the episode, learning is structured and there are different ways that people learn, and how you put them into that structure can determine if they stick with the material and if they excel with it. So if you do you mind sharing a little bit about if there's a new coach out there or a new course creator out there, what should they maybe consider when creating their material for their audience?
I think when you start to create material, it can always feel overwhelming. And much as though traditional education gets a lot of things wrong, but we won't go into that in this episode, it gets a lot of things right. And having good structure is one of those things. So in learning design, in instructional design, often you'll set out with course outcomes. So by the end of this course, the person should be able to do this, this, and this. And what I love to do, if you've never even written a course before, you can take this framework and go and do it right away. Think of 5 things that you want someone to be able to do by the end of the course, and these can become your 5 modules. So I want someone to be able to do this thing, and this thing, and this thing, and this thing, and this thing. And so, for example, if it was a course on, let's say wine making, so by the end of the quarter, I will know, by the end of the course, I'll know what grapes there are, the differences between red and white wine, whether I should make in oak or stainless steel, how long I should mature the wine for, and what tasting notes I should look for. I just threw 5 random things. I'm not a wine expert by any stretch, but that's just one way of approaching it. When you've got those 5 learning outcomes, if you think of those as modules, then inside that, write 3 to 5 lessons that contribute towards that. So in the red versus white wine, you might want to talk about Grenache grapes or Merlot grapes or Cabernet Sauvignon grapes. You could have a different video on that, and you're helping towards that learning outcome. So if you've never written a course before, and if you're a coach and want to think that way, 5 learning outcomes, 3 to 5 lessons in each of those that contribute towards the learning outcome that is the module title. And that's the basic framework for a course. Of course, it can go out in many places and it doesn't have to stick. But if you've got that to start with, it gives you a framework to work with.
So, for those course creators, coaches, subject matter experts, consultants, they get into that field because of the knowledge they have, the experience they have, and their clients trust them all for those reasons, plus more. I believe sometimes with course creators, coaches, or consultants, it's never the content. It becomes more about the exposure, the trust, and the engagement, right? I put all these hours into creating a course. Now I need people to find it and go through it. In your experience, can you elaborate on those key elements of building that trust, that awareness, and that engagement for someone that is looking to put all their heart, sweat, and tears into the material?
Absolutely. I can do that. So, what we like to do, we have a framework which is called Prospector Promoter, and it helps draw someone from becoming aware of the products that you have, the services, the courses that you have, to building into your community, getting to know you, getting to communicate with you, perhaps getting a free lead magnet or a guide, if you're not aware of that term, lead magnet, to then getting a tripwire or a low price product that then leads all the way through to buying your course, joining your membership, buying your coaching. So it's about building those trust steps along the way. Now, where it ties in with the course content is those learning outcomes become the features of your course. And then if you can tie those to the benefits in your marketing language, it then sets you up in that way to be able to market effectively. And when you think about the course content, you can take a slither of that and that can become your tripwire, and a slither of the slither, and then that can become your free guide. And so using those structures, it's a great way of being able to build trust, engagement, and then get people to buy your product, your service.
For someone that's a little bit more brand new and they hear the word tripwire, what's the best way to describe that to someone who maybe doesn't have the full marketing experience?
Yeah,
What
so
would a tripwire relate to or be similar to?
okay. So the reason, first of all, the reason we use tripwires is there is a psychological element of making a purchase. So you pick out a card, or you go to PayPal and you put in your card details, and by doing that, you've made a commitment to the content that's there. And so what we're looking for with a tripwire is a minimal purchase. And it can depend on where you're trying to sell someone to. You see it at dentists everywhere. We have local dentists that will do x-rays and an examination and a clean for $59 or $99. They're not making any money on that, but they're hoping that they're going to get to do $2,000 worth of work in your mouth at some point and make some money at a future. So the tripwire is getting someone in the door. It's getting a commitment, and it works in the online space as much as it works in the offline space. So you might have a course that you're selling at $2,000 or $4,000 or $15,000. Your tripwire might be a $97 product. You might have
Mhm.
something you're selling at a cheaper rate, and so your tripwire might be $7 or $17, $27. It's just a way of starting to get someone more committed, and you want to knock their socks off with that so that they keep coming back and want to go deeper and deeper into everything that you're doing.
Yeah, that clears it up a lot because depending on the industry you're in and the content you're giving, it might be, a high ticket offer. And, if they don't know you or understand fully what you do or how it's going to help them, what you're saying is that tripwire gives them that exposure and that experience, and then you have the opportunity of serving them to the next level little by little from there on.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we do as well, if we're working with someone, it's a small commitment of time or money. So it could be showing up for a webinar as much as buying a tripwire, because if someone gives you their time, that's their most valuable asset that they have. So showing up for a sales call effectively is a tripwire, because at that point they've committed time. They've moved along the journey in terms of building trust with you. If they trust you enough to show up for a sales call, you've got that next level of trust with them. And it's the same with a webinar.
Yeah, I'm starting to see it in my mind myself now, where I would see different tripwires throughout my, if I search something, I see a low entry offer to jump in to experience it. To your point, maybe it's a webinar, maybe it was a $59 or $99, trial or some sort of experience. And I would have never maybe entertained it unless it was available for me, which is nice to see in action. So, in your years of experience working with clients that are trying to take their course to the market, what are some things that maybe trip them up a bit with getting started or getting themselves out there to even have an offer visible to people?
There's a couple of different groups of people. You've got people who know a lot and who won't even think about writing the course. They know it's going to be a big investment of time, and they're worried they're not going to be able to market on the other side, so they don't even start. And one of the things we like to do with someone like that is say, well, why not teach it live to start with? You can sell to it, and you can bring people in, and you can teach it live, right? At least that way you're getting paid to go through it and set up the content. And at least you've got something out there. Often, I've paid good money for courses that have been terrible in terms of the quality of the filming and everything like that. We can get into our heads about these things, but I've seen courses that have great content that have been filmed on a camera in a basement. The second group of people have written a course, they've got it recorded, and then they are so close to their course that when it comes to creating a landing page to sell it, that it becomes all about the features and not about the benefits. And they've maybe not even thought about who they're trying to sell it to. We're big believers in customer avatar, or whatever you want to call it, brand personas, and we call it a customer avatar. And you need a course avatar as much. You need to think how that person is going to learn. And then that really feeds nicely into the marketing. You might have some people who can spend an hour in front of a video and it's not a problem. You might have people who've only got 10 minutes a day. And so your videos need to be 7 minutes, 8 minutes long so they can get through them in digestible chunks. Same thing goes with podcasts. I've seen great podcasts that are 5-10 minutes a day, and that's perfect for someone, on the way to work, dropping his kids to school or something like that. Whereas other people might have a 45-minute, an hour and a half podcast that they can dedicate to. Ultimately, if you know who you're directing your content at, you can have great marketing as well.
So, knowing your audience is so important, right? Understanding your audience, understanding their time, understanding how much they're potentially going to be invested into what you're teaching and what you're sharing outside of the money factor is important. Am I on point with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, customer avatar's always been something we've been really keen on working on, because empathy is one of our company values. So we always want our team to be able to empathize, not just with the client we're working with, but with their customers as well. So if you're making a course for people whose children have autism, for example, you need to think, well, what's that parent going through? What issues is that parent going through? How are they thinking? How are they feeling? Where are they spending their time? What are their dreams, hopes, etc.? It's coming into that course. So it's such a key thing for us, and the avatar really drills into that. But people make buying decisions based on emotion. They're on gut, and so with those things in mind, it's really important.
Yeah, I make purchases all the time, and I agree with you. Whether it's pain, whether it's for pleasure, whether it's for what I saw someone get a result from buying, I'll purchase it because I want that end feeling of whether it's feeling successful, whether it's feeling fit, healthy, happy. So I agree with you, and it's sometimes as marketers we get so caught into our end result of earning the business that sometimes we forget the end result of our avatar, our customer. And once we're disconnected like that, that becomes the biggest speed bump that we need to overcome. Customer is first, their feelings is first, and what their end result that they want is first. In your experience, working with a handful of coaches and course creators and those that are just starting from scratch to, above and beyond, what is truly required after production of that course, of that experience for their potential customer?
So we have a system we call Prospector Promoter. And it's a framework that we have that takes someone from not knowing who you are to going out and championing what you do. And so it starts with Spotlight, and it's how you get a spotlight on your brand or on your service. So that could be appearing on a podcast. It could be running Facebook ads. It could be search engine optimization, SEO. It could be pay-per-click. How do people even find you? How do you get your store on the high street, right? Because people are walking down that high street, and if your store's not there, they don't even know who you are and how to work. So what does that spotlight look like? It could be, and much as though we talk about digital things, it could be on in person as well. It could easily be, I'm speaking at an event. People find out about me because I'm speaking at an event. I'm at a networking meeting. I'm at a conference. So many different ways to get the spotlight on you, your business, your products, PR as well. I could go through a million different ways to get a spotlight on someone. But once they've done that, the next stage is to connect with you. So that's the next stage in our framework. So how are they connecting? Are they commenting on your social media? Are they watching your reels, your TikToks? Are they coming to talk to you after that networking event? What's that next stage for connecting? The next thing we want is a subscription. So that at this point, it's capturing an email address, capturing a phone number, sharing a business card in person. It's that next stage of warming up to you. And this works for a course creator as much as it works for any digital business, but even off-ground businesses as well, or on-ground businesses rather. We own a ballet studio. If someone comes in, we capture their phone number and email address so that we can then connect with them in the future. So these are kind of our first three stages as part of the Prospector Promoter. So the Spotlight, which is getting the awareness on you, the Connect, which is when they start to talk to you, and then the Subscribe when you get an email address or a phone number.
Yeah, you've shared some techniques that are easily available. So if I'm thinking this through, if I'm creating a course from scratch based on my expertise, I'm not tech savvy. I'm not I'm not 100% equipped with all the knowledge and resources needed, but I do have an awareness with my Facebook page or my Instagram page or my TikTok. So I get this course created. I then start promoting it briefly by just sharing what I have happening. And what you're saying, if I'm correct, is invite people to participate, invite people to raise their hand and learn more, right? As long as I share it, they will learn more, they'll be interested. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. It kind of comes, you're seeing it a lot more now on Instagram. I checked out Amy Porterfield, who's very well known in the course space the other day, and she had 3 consecutive posts that were all saying DM the word dream or comment dream below. And I know HighLevel has just brought this in as a new feature that you can then use that in a workflow to trigger sending an email to someone, to bring them, to ask them for an email address, etc. And so it's that similar thing. It's like, get someone to put their hand up, say, I want what you've got, the information that you've got. And then based on that, you bring them into your funnel, you bring them into your workflows.
So that's the transition. I mean, making it easy. And, I guess back in the day, it's fair to say that people had to maybe fill out a form. Maybe they needed to use their 2 thumbs more often than not. Now it's speak to your phone, respond to a post, click a button. The information's already saved on your phone in there, but just ask them to do it for value. And I guess that's where that tripwire comes in, right? So you give some value, and you give them the path to decide where and how much and how far they want to go deep into your content. And then
Right.
at that point, it sounds like, if I'm right here or if I'm on the right path, that's where that transition from prospect to promoter comes in?
Kind of. So, after we've got their email, their phone number, so the next thing we're going to do is try and move them to that commit stage, which is the next stage. So at this point, we're trying to get them to commit to time or a small money investment. So maybe we gave them a free guide to the wines of France. We'll keep with wine making just because that's where we are right now. And so then maybe there's a webinar that's coming up on the Bourgogne region of France. And so they can get an invite to that. Or maybe there's an evergreen webinar that you can go to that's on the same topic. Or at the same point, maybe there's a in-depth guide to French wines that they can buy for $7. And that's our next stage. At this point, we're looking for that to weed out the people who are just looking for something for free. And you always get those people who are just looking for the free guide. They're never actually going to do anything with you. And so you'll see it. I'm sure you get DMs at times where people are trying to get you onto a phone call. They're trying to move you from the subscribe stage where you've kind of been connecting to the commit stage. They want a commitment from you, a small monetary or time commitment. And so that's what they're looking for. After this, go on.
And it's amazing because, if you're an analytical thinker and you're going deep in the weeds, you're mapping this all out, you're building a whole structure and a plan. And if you're thinking this in the big picture, let me put together something that has a need in the community or a need for my audience, and let me just make it easy for them to get it. And then everything else will care for itself, as long as I have that good content and that good education, which sometimes if someone's watching this and they're like, man, I just spent hours to build this, it's not always necessary from what I'm learning with you. And you're doing this for hundreds and hundreds of your clients where they have the idea and they say, Steve and your team, could you please make this to be easily consumed and captured so I can do what I do best and teach my people.
Right.
That's awesome.
People overcomplicate everything. It's easy to kind of get into the weeds, and sometimes you just need to put something out. You just need to put a sign out on the street. A kid starting a lemonade stand doesn't, look for the perfect combination of sugar and lemons and make sure that the sign's printed. They write lemonade 50 cents or $1 probably now, and they stick it on front of a table and they have lemonade out there.
Yes. And so, that leads me to our second point here of striking while it's hot, right? Like we can spend hours, days, months coming up with the concept, the plan, and the hopeful end result. When do you know it's the right time to take the next step in the journey? You have the idea, you have the context around the idea, you have the learning structure set up. When is how do you know it's the next time to take action?
For me, striking while the iron's hot is always about, it's about being ahead of the curve. And I think it's something that great marketers do well. Often people are held back by fear. They're worried that they have to do something perfectly, but striking while the iron's hot is, when messaging first came out, when you used to be able to do subscriptions with Facebook Messenger, for example, when ManyChat was in its infancy, we saw that come out and we saw the huge opportunity for people to use that as a tool to connect with their audience. And if you are newer to marketing, you won't remember the good times when, you could message people 7 times a day or as many times as a day as you wanted, for as long as they stayed on your list, essentially, through Facebook Messenger. Now you have to do it within a 24-hour window, and you have to get in. Facebook want to charge you extra for reconnecting with people and things like that. But we got into that and helped coaches make tens of thousands of dollars with this because they were able to push people out to register for a webinar, to move along that prospector promoter journey. And we were similar with HighLevel. We saw it. We've been with HighLevel 3-4 years at this point. And we were fairly early. It was a HTML builder at that time. We didn't have a lot of the things that we have now. And we saw the opportunity, though. We saw how it could serve our markets really well, how it could serve courses and coaches. And so we took 2 weeks. 2 weeks is how quickly we launched our version of HighLevel, which is called Rule Your Business. We launched within 2 weeks. I worked my butt off for 2 weeks to get it to where I wanted to get it, to get the app ready to go. And we launched within 2 weeks, and we launched to $10,000 of monthly recurring revenue because we had a great market fit. We tweaked the inside, the content. We put templates in there that just were absolutely perfect for the market we were working with. And that gave us that initial 10. And then we relaunched and took another 5 with a smaller launch. And then we did a bigger launch and took 30,000. But this was within a 6-month period. But we moved fast. We struck while the iron was hot before anyone else had even realized what you could do with HighLevel at that point.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear because we have a huge community at all different levels, and some of our community might think the number is what matters. Others might think that the content, the strategy matters, but everything obviously matters, right? And I think the most important part is like, to your point, knowing when striking while the iron is hot has everything to do with knowing your surrounding, your industry, your audience, the demand, and then taking action. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of skip the beat and they wonder, well, how come I didn't get a part of that? Is they didn't act fast enough because maybe they were going too deep in the weeds of getting everything set up versus listening to what the market had to say and say, look, let's get this out and build upon it. So I appreciate you sharing that because that is something that does come up a lot. Um, with somebody that's looking to create the course um, and put it out there, um, to strike while the iron's hot, does that mean doing paid ads? Does that mean doing the spotlight sessions only? Like, what are some action items that someone can take to strike while the iron's hot? Like, what are some things that you, in your experience, will give them the result of awareness to their audience?
For me, striking while the iron's hot, it can be on very many different levels. You might have course content that is super relevant that can help someone get started in a new area of business right away. I remember around the time that HighLevel was coming out, Clubhouse was a big thing. Anybody remember Clubhouse? Anybody still listen to Clubhouse? I know I don't. But as soon as it was out, there was courses out there about it. And of course, you are capturing a piece of a market early on at that stage. The same thing goes with social media, right? You're trying to capture attention at that point. We have the US government who's started the process of banning TikTok, right? This is something that's in the news and has been in the news. It's a great opportunity for someone to go on and talk about how you should be building your audience, not just on TikTok, but off TikTok. How are you taking them to the messages? How are you taking them to email? Are you taking them to Instagram? Are you taking them to YouTube? It's an opportunity for you to capture attention at that point, though, and be one of the first people to react. Great marketers do this. There was a Super Bowl, I think it was the 49ers versus the Ravens, I think, where it blacked out. And Oreos came out with a tweet immediately, that talking about dipping Oreos in milk and in the dark. And, it was perfect marketing because they were very relevant at that time. Same thing goes for Ryan Reynolds with Aviator Gin, when they took the Peloton girl who looked like she was being forced to use the Peloton and then gave her, Aviator Gin. She was having a cocktail. It's jumping on trends to capture attention, to capture awareness, and to put the spotlight on your brand at those points as well.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with the transition into good, better, best, right? Like, do you just settle for good and then build upon it to get better to the best version? I think in order to get to best, you got to do something. And I think a lot of folks they're almost like paralysis by analysis. They're like, what do I do? And
Right.
that could you share a little bit around some of the decision making or goal setting somebody should maybe consider as they plan out maybe their promotion campaign or their launch of their course or version 2, 3, and 4? How does somebody know where they're at?
So I'm going to call out Sean, High Level, one of the founders here, because I love how they approach things, and it's a methodology known in computer development called agile, right? And so you build the skateboard, then you build the scooter, then you build the car. The skateboard is going to get you from A to B. It's not going to be as comfortable as the car, but it's going to get you moving in the right direction, right? So your first version of anything just needs to be a skateboard. You just need to get something out there and then level it up and then level it up. And so, for us, our first version of our SaaS, of Rule Your Business, was simpler. And then we added things, and then I brought in a team. I brought in help, and that's where you go from good to better to best. We hired someone who used to do corporate training for Radio Shack and said, "Come in, use this program, learn how to use it, and now create documentation around how to use it." And so we set up training to help our people at that point, because that's what they needed, to use the platform. And it was written by a woman for women, because our market was predominantly women. Our business is She Reigns Creative. Doesn't mean we don't work with men, but most of our audience are either working with a lot of women or women themselves. But it's about leveling up, and to get from one stage to the next was investments. And it's no different to if you look at Mr. Beast on YouTube, right? His first videos weren't as good as the ones that he has now, but he invested in a better camera. He spent more money. He gave away bigger cars, bigger houses, spent on more things. It's about taking those next stages, and it means investing in it. For us, we've worked with multiple marketing coaches throughout the years to help us as a business. And sometimes one of the things we see with course creators is they've got great courses. And then when it comes to marketing, so they've got like an A course, and then it's like a C or a D page, because they don't know necessarily how to talk to the audience that they're targeting. And they don't know how to write marketing speech. So what they do is they just put something up. I reviewed a page this morning for someone who was teaching people investment in houses, and I told them it was soulless, and they were okay with being told that, but it has to connect with people. And so making those investments is one way to go from good to better and then to best.
Yeah, and you said having the fundamentals and knowing how to speak to the audience is so important in any marketing campaign. But I feel like with course creation, consulting, you said it was soulless, and I feel like when someone is whether they're committing to time or money, it's to your point in the soul of why they're doing it. This is so important to them. Whether they've just started a new thought process around going after a certification, whether it's them changing careers, whether it's them trying to improve their marriage or get into a hobby, it's very personal to them. So it needs to speak to that soul, that mind, and that inner person for it to really catch. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're putting a course together with everything you have and it's coming from authenticity and experience, it will be at at a good starting point to get you to the better best. It's where you start leveraging, you know, different tools, or you're not truly an expert in that field. That's where it'll be the mediocre. Um, is there any advice for someone that is doing some searching on maybe course creation, or they came across this and they have the knowledge, they have the experience, but they don't know where to start to get to at least good? How do you and where do you begin?
So I think a lot of it comes back to what we were talking about a little earlier with the prospector promoter blueprint, right? So, even coming back to that, you have multiple funnels on the way through. The first one is getting that to that first commitment. The second one is getting them into buying your main product, which is going through energizing them, getting them excited, and then getting into that main product. And then once we've maximized the value, which we always want to do, so with the upsells and things like that, the back end is asking them to give a review if you've got one, and to then go and champion your product through an affiliate program or something like that. So once you think about this whole flow, you build trust with people. It sets you up for doing these sorts of things. It moves people from prospect to promoter through every single stage. And when you start to think about the various aspects as you go through this, you build trust in people. They get to know you. And of course, the quality of your course is part of that. You know, it's how good of a course that you're providing people is going to make a difference.
So if somebody were to, put a beta out there of their course, and gather reviews and share those reviews, is that something that would something you'd recommend or advise? Like, let's say they're just at that stage where they're not 100%, right? They just want to get a feel for the market. How could they leverage those reviews or those testimonials? And how do they ask for it without, being shy about it or afraid that they're putting someone on the spot?
Yeah, you know, we see this a lot. If you're not sure, go and have a beta. Charge them something, because people doing things for free just doesn't work. You know, there was a while we worked with a lot of Beachbody coaches, and I met the CEO, the guy who, you know, P90X was the big program they had. And he said when he first released P90X, he gave it to free for 10 people. He gave it to them for free, and none of them did it because they weren't invested in it. And so you give someone access to your course for free, they're probably not going to do it unless you're paying them to go through it. But if you say, hey, well, this is going to be a $2,000 course, I'm going to give it to you for $197. Can you go through? And as a result of this, you've got to give me a testimonial on the end, or give me some real feedback. You know, I'm going to ask for feedback after every module. I'm going to ask for feedback at the end of the course, so that you can make that product the best product that it can be out there. So you can absolutely do that and monetize it along the way, or do the live version that we spoke about as well. That can be a beta too. And set up a simple landing page, send people Zoom links on a weekly basis, do the Zoom, capture some information on the back end, manipulate that product to make it as best as it can, and then set up the funnels on that. When it comes to asking for reviews, if you've got something established, ideas we have is maybe it's a 3-month program and you give a review, you get an extra month free. Maybe you get a month in a continuation program more. So often with courses, we try and move people into a membership afterwards, some form of ongoing support, as a way to continue to make money out of people. If they love you, why not give them somewhere else to work with you? And so it's easy to say, hey, you can get 2 free months in the inner circle, or whatever you choose to call it, by giving us a review, a video review, and then you send them to somewhere to create a video review for you. And now you've got something that's compelling by a third party that you can put out there on your socials, in your ads, as retargeting ads when people have come to your landing page already, which is going to compel them to move things forward. You know, for me, one of the strongest testimonials is when you find someone who's like you. Now, I'm not a thin guy by any stretch of the imagination. Whenever I look at a weight loss program, I'm always looking for someone who's the same size as me. I'm like, well, look, this guy was the same weight as me, and he got to that way. That way, I've got a testimonial that aligns with me. I'm looking for someone who looks like me, who's in a similar position. And if you can find that with avatars, that you've got those different testimonials, you've got someone who started from this position, you've got someone who started from that position. Maybe someone made this much money with their course, but before they were a teacher and they were doing this, oh, I'm a teacher, I could do that too. If you've got people that they see themselves in those positions, in those testimonials, they're going to be lining up, ready to work with you, ready to join your course, ready to be
That's
coached.
actually great advice for someone that, might take it for granted, right? Like, oh, I know I have hundreds of people that have taken my course and I've helped hundreds of different people. But if you don't share those stories with other potential audience members out there, they're not going to know if this is for them. So I appreciate you sharing that nugget, because sometimes we speed right by it because we are just looking to put ourselves out there. We're looking to, help solve a problem or become the authority in our space over time. So that's very helpful. And I feel like that, these are things that you've learned over time. Could you share a little bit about how you perfect your craft, how you level yourself up from, good, better to best each time?
So for me, I'm just the sort of person who, one of my happy places is taking a course. If you've ever done archetype work, which kind of identifies, who you are, I'm both a teacher and a student. I love both. I'm the sort of person who'll learn something and then turn it the next day and teach it, because I want to share those great nuggets that I've learned from someone. And so for me, I'm constantly learning and sending to our team as well. I'm watching something on TikTok or Instagram, and I'm like, I love this method, and I'll forward it to my business partner or our director of agency operations or our CMO. I'll be like, you got to, look at this. But there's always things out there, and as marketers, I feel like we need to test things constantly anyway. Always be testing, right? I had a great conversation with a marketer recently around this, and so we learn from reading, but we also learn from doing as well, right? And so, we've made a lot of mistakes. We didn't get a SaaSPRENEUR Award, overnight. It took making the mistakes on the way. We've literally tried. We've literally tried many different ways. And so you are constantly doing things. We've also used coaching programs. We've used multiple different marketing coaching programs. And that has helped us level up as business owners. And then, adapting best practices that you see out there. I'm constantly looking and seeing what people are saying that's working, and then almost hacking it backwards, right? Or what do you call that? Just hacking the systems that people are using. For me, I have a creative mind as much as I have an analytical mind. And it's not something that's necessarily easy to teach, but when you start to look at things and then break down what everything's made up of. Let me give you an example of this, because everyone's loves AI, right? But most people don't use it well. So most people would be like, hey, write a blog post on this. But if you look at the best blog posts that were written from 5 years ago, they maybe had 7 paragraphs, and there was maybe 3 statistics in them, and there was a paragraph that had a call to action in it. So now, instead of going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, write me a blog post on this, you can say, hey, write me a blog post. It should be 7 paragraphs. Paragraph 3 should have 3 statistics, and you should put a footnote at the bottom that says where those statistics came from. Paragraph 7 should be all about doing this. So if you can break things down, you can then build them up afterwards. And so I'm not quite sure how we ended up on that topic, but that's another good tip as well.
Yeah, well, the learning structure.
Yeah.
The learning structure, I mean, you only get as much as you put in back out, right? As long as you teach it, you guide it, you have clear expectations, you're going to get what you want. And I believe, there is that difference where you just say, hey, so and so, type me up this, and I want it to be human-like, right? That's not enough for it to fully understand your audience, the end result you want, the impact it's going to have, the emotional attachment it should have. So yes, these tools are out there, but they do require your perspective, your experience, and your audience's end result, what they're looking to make better, whether it's in their day-to-day work or studying or learning. So I appreciate you jumping into that, because sometimes we take it for granted that this thing will do it on its own. It's not going to do it on its own. If that was the case, then it would be doing it already. And I'm a big believer that as long as you understand the process and you practice it time over time, it will become second nature. And it sounds like that's what you all have done at She Reigns Creative. You've met with hundreds of people, you've looked at hundreds of sites, hundreds of courses, you've given hundreds of different types of feedback, and now it's second nature. So when you're taking on clients, you probably have some sort of checklist that you glance at every once in a while, but you've become the expert over time. And it also sounds like you guys and gals at She Reigns Creative stay up to date with what's going on. So you're always educating yourself as a marketer, but as well as a consumer, and you're bridging that gap. So it's refreshing to hear, because yes, we can find this in bits and pieces, but when you're sharing that with our community, we're looking on how it applies to maybe the systems that we're using. So with all of your knowledge, all of your expertise creating courses, looking at sites and helping clients to have the SaaSPRENEUR Award behind you, how did you intertwine all of that? I mean, it sounds like you need a whole separate platform or process to do all of this. What are some ways that you embedded HighLevel into your day-to-day business?
So for us, we have this prospector promoter blueprint. I've mentioned it a couple of times, and I've put up a page that you can grab it from. So if you go to ruleyourbusiness.com /P2P, the number 2P, you can grab that. And what that is going to show you the framework that we use to go from prospect to promoter. And I've spoken about most of the stages as we've gone through this, but that's going to tell you about that framework. And so when we were creating our version at Rule Your Business of HighLevel, we were using those stages. So we were making sure that we were offering free lead magnets for our audience that they could use with their target audience. So they would have those things. We were giving them suggestions of low price products or webinars that they could use as that next stage. So you can build a snapshot with the framework built into it that it helps take someone from not knowing who they are to going through buying a product or getting something for free, buying a product, going into a membership on the back end of things, going into a community. So you can take the worlds intertwine beautifully. And for us, that was one of the big things. We took clients who were paying for multiple different tools to using just this one tool that was more complete than the sum of its parts. And so that's where they intertwine. For us, every client, no matter if they're using another learning management system, which some of them are, and some of them are that, we will usually 98% of the time we'll set them up a Rule Your Business account as well, because there's something that platform is missing that we can support with a fully functional CRM on the back end.
I appreciate you sharing that, because folks that are coming across this episode are coming across because maybe they looked up some sort of software or system to help them in their business or in their new venture. So they try to put two and two together, this, HighLevel and this, expert sharing the details. How do they relate? And they can find you. How would someone go about getting the P2P platform? Like, do they get the snapshot? Do they get? Is there a website that they go to? Like, walk us through that process of
So right now,
connecting with you.
Right now, it's a PDF that's going to take you through the various stages so you can think out this process. It's always driven our marketing coaches crazy, but we don't productize our service. We have this framework that we use, but we have a coaching approach that we always meet people where they're at. And it's the same with any course creator. We always meet them where they're at. So while someone might be doing a podcast to bring people in, someone else might have money to spend on paid ads. Someone else might have a huge speaking career that we can use to leverage these systems. So this PDF is going to give you the options to think about the various stages of things. A snapshot is a great idea, and I can probably get our team to put one together. It might not be there right when this episode goes live, but we'll have you on an email list on the back of downloading that P2P spreadsheet. And then if we do put together a snapshot, we'll put that out there for you guys to be able to have that as well. And then if you need help to dig into what your journey looks like and you want to work with someone through that, you can go to shereinscreative.com and book a call. It will be with me or my business partner, David, who is phenomenal and knows these systems in the same way he's worked with us for pretty much since the agency started. And we're here to support you through that. And hopefully you've got some value from this that you can use.
So you take on other marketing agencies or marketers that are looking to serve their clients that may not be able to serve them. So if you're a marketing agency and you have a coach client that's looking for in-depth services, essentially you would take them on and be their support backbone to make that happen.
We help people in a couple of different ways. So we white label. We know how to use not just the HighLevel learning platform, but a few of the other big ones. We know how to use them. We can help with the strategy behind that. But, as much as this strategy system works, we work with other businesses as well to, kind of help them see what's going on in their business. Because you might have had a great launch and got so far with your business, but maybe you're not getting recurring business because you're not taking advantage and leveraging the unique factors that are going on inside of your business. We're
So
experts.
powerful.
We're experts at that. So
Yeah, so powerful. And again, everyone's at a different journey. And I think the most important part is just getting started, consuming content like this with experts like yourself that are willing to share how they started, how they grew, and where they're going. For someone that's brand new and they've been inspired to put the metal to the pedal, um, how what advice could you give them with getting their journey going?
are we talking about a course? What sort of
Course, we're talking about course, we're talking about SaaSPRENEUR, we're talking about just being the marketing industry.
So with any course, you just need to put something out there. And it's the same with SaaS. You have to find something that's going to appeal to your audience. You have to build something, but it doesn't have to be 100% built to start with. And we joined a membership recently that I love the guys' take on SEO. And I go into it and I log in and I'm like, what do you mean the next module's not released till May 1st and then another one in June? But that's normal. It's not abnormal to see those sorts of things. So it could be, hey, we've got this, and then the landing pages are coming in May, and then the emails are coming in June, and this is coming in July. And then you can increase the prices as the value increases, but you can still get money to pay your high-level subscription quickly and cover those basic costs. There's no reason you can't go out and get those things started straight away. And if you wanted to get into marketing, it's the same thing. If you know your audience, if you know your avatar, coming back full circle back to customer avatar, one of the things we talk about is if you knew someone as well as you know your brother or your sister, you could sell your brother or sister on anything. And you probably have. You guys have probably done some silly things at some point that you've just been like, we should do this because it's going to be this and this and this. And you sell them on things that you'll look back on and think, how did I convince you to do that? But you can do that when you know someone really well. And the same thing goes with your avatar. If someone feels like you know them, like no one else has known them, if you show them that you understand them, you're going to be able to work with them. So you may have a micro niche. You may have a niche that no one else is serving right now. And don't be afraid to niche down and be the one person who helps those 5, 10 people who need a SaaS that speaks exactly to that micro niche. And
I
then
appreciate it.
It's kind of like SEO, right? Like the old days, like SEO, if you want to be the best plumber in New York, you don't go and target the words plumber in New York to start with. You might target emergency plumber Queens or emergency plumber Manhattan, and then you might get plumber Manhattan, and then you might get plumber New York. You start with the micro niche and then grow out from there. And the same thing's possible with your SaaS.
Yeah, these are, nuggets that we're running through day after day, client after client, idea after idea, and the obvious is sometimes not so obvious. So I appreciate you, right, just validating that if you're thinking that or if you thought that way, you're on the right path. Take action, and you've heard it for yourself from Steve Andrews and his team that supports all of their customers and the journey. 2-time SaaSPRENEUR winner. I really appreciate you just hanging out here and sharing your story, sharing some framework, sharing what people can do immediately to make an impact in their industry, in their niche, and educate, but also make it not so stressful to put themselves out there. So I appreciate you very much. There'll be some links below on how to get in touch with Steve Andrews, his team, his Prospector promoter framework that he's offered out. And we hope to see you soon again and at our future events. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve.
All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you.